Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rachachwarash, double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, who rule well and teach well with sincerity, honesty, and integrity. Brothers labor in this truth, putting their life on the line, especially in these times. Salutations to you, brothers, and you brothers and sisters who believe in the truth wholeheartedly, sincerely. Shalom to the hopeful elect. All right, so this is going to be a quick lesson. I was just listening to the first few minutes. Elder Yashawarma's News and Prophecy video, the recent one he just did. And it just compelled me just to hit the play button because I was thinking of some precepts. I know he probably brings them out, but we're going to go ahead and still bring them out here in this lesson. And pray this lesson is edifying to the flock, to the sheep. Spirit and power, y'all. Wash them all shine. All right, let me press play on one of the phones so you can hear it.
It's happening. Attack on ruling elites erupt as warehouses burn and billionaires are targeted. And we showed you in one of our recent News and Prophecies that 60% of Americans now harbor unfavorable views, all right, towards the small hat. See? And it's only going to grow. And we know what the scriptures say, okay, about sedition, which we'll get that. But let's play some of this video, and Lord willing, get some scriptures, a few other articles, and we'll get up out of here.
You've been noticing this, but there has been a wave of attacks against ruling class elites. And it's been happening. It's been like rapidly increasing by the day. So it's happening, man. Workers are erupting across this country.
Workers are erupting across the country. The working class. Okay? Because you would think the government that was prudent would have the foresight or the wherewithal to take care, or at least act as if they're taking care of the very people who they need to forward their system. Okay? They're locked.
All right, so, the point was made in that way. Salakia. I'm gonna bring out this James 5:1, and it reads, what else like? All right, it reads, "Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted." All right, because it was gotten by deceit, right? So their riches are corrupted. They got by lies, rape and murder, pillaging, right? Genocide. That's how they receive their riches. Your riches are corrupted and your garments are moth-eaten. All right, and it reads, "Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you," right? "And shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasures together for the last days," right? And ultimately, that's what they're gonna try to accomplish when it comes to that MOTB, right? They're gonna want even have complete control even of your bodies, right? "Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud," right? "Cried, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth." You see? So, yeah, man. So these laborers, they're gonna come back up against you, man. And you hearing it like you just read, you heard in the article, what the brother brought out, what's going on, and a lot of these warehouses getting burnt down, and it's only gonna intensify that sedition, against the princes and the rulers and the kings and the merchants, right? It's gonna only intensify. It's only get up. It's only gonna heat up, man. Things is gonna heat up, man, because people are sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. You go to work, you at the end of the week, all you do is have enough money to survive and barely survive by the by the thread. You know, you holding on to the threads. Like, you just barely holding on, man. You see? And to the point where you're not really even holding on. It's an illusion, man. People are going to just give up because it's only going to get worse, where people are not going to be able to survive. And they just going to, all hell's going to break loose, man. All right? So let me grab this real quick. Joel chapter, I think it's 20. Sometimes I can see it no better in this one. Hold on, so it helps also. Yep, we're gonna jump down to grab that. But first, we're gonna read this. Job 20:5 reads that the triumph of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment, right? So you have, woe unto you rich men, man. It's only for a moment. It's only for a season, right? You able to, weigh the violence in the earth with your hands. You weigh the violence in the earth. That wasn't going to be an everlasting thing, man. You was going to have your time to rule, which is, the Lord is just. He gave you a time where you will have fatness of the earth. But then now is going to be a time the Lord is going to unpluck the roots of the evil, man. He gonna unpluck, that wicked tree. You're a bad tree, right? That needs to be unplucked and thrown in the oven. You see? You know how we can equate that sometimes, in the scriptures, you wicked, the wicked Israelites, right? But also the wicked in general, man, they're going to get thrown in that oven. They reserve, when you go in Malachi 4:1, they're going to be thrown in that oven, man. All right? But let me jump down to the spirit of power. Joel 20 and verse 20, in verse 22, it reads, in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits, position of difficulty. That straits right there is going to be in position of difficulty, right? It says, every hand of the wicked, right? And if you go, matter of fact, let's go get that, Joel 20, verse 22. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits, and every hand of the wicked shall come upon him, right? Now let's go get that word. Yes, lock it. I won't be able to get it, but but that's going into the workers as well. Let's get into Amplify. Let's see. In the fullness of his excess, great abundance, right? He will be in trouble. The hand of everyone who suffers, right? So it's not going into the wicked, right? Who suffers, the laborers, right? Will come against him. He is miserable on every side, right? Should come upon him, right? So that's what's gonna happen to him, man. Those that suffer, they're gonna turn against the rulers and the princes and the kings, which is your modern day government, the senates, your business owners, your merchants, the people, you small, like the brothers the elder is going into the small hats, right? That rules mostly everything, they're gonna turn up against you, man, because they know who everybody. Like I did my lesson yesterday, the skirt is being lifted, man. Their skirt is being lifted, right? Verse 23, back in the KJV, says, when he is about to fill his belly, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua should cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating, right? So you're not going to be able to fulfill your enterprise, man. Let's get that. You're not going to be able to fulfill your enterprise, man. see if it's. Yep. Job 5:12, and it reads, he disappointed the devices of the crafty, right? So that their hands cannot perform their enterprise, right? Right? So let's read that in the AMP. He frustrates the devices and schemes of the crafty, right? Because that's their scheme is to have everybody M-chipped, all right? That's their scheme, man. Ultimately, that's where we're heading towards. That's why you're seeing this control collapse. That's why you see the economy the way it is, because they want to do a global reset, all right? Where they're administering these RFID CHIPs, all right? And that's the MOTB, all right? So Job 5:12, it reads, he frustrates the devices and schemes of the crafty so that their hands cannot attain success or achieve anything or of worth, of lasting, right? So they're not going to achieve their goals, man. You know, their ultimate goal. The Lord is going to the Lord's wrath is going to come upon them as soon as they're looking to fulfill their belly. All right. So that's what we have pleasure in knowing, the Lord's, word is not going to return unto him void. We believe in on this word, and we know there's going to be an end to Edom's kingdom. So that's why we're not crashing out, because, we ultimately know we have to wait upon the Lord, like when you read in Zephaniah, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, yeah, man, we at the end of this man's rulership, man. He's being exposed. People sick and tired of his shit, man. And things are only going to heat up from here, man. So with that, I pray this lesson